Thank you, Nina Enrique. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News on tonight's headlines. Fear and grief on a U.S. university campus after a deadly shooting at Florida State University.
2 victims of deceased are deceased, and 5 individuals have been transported to a local hospital with gunshot wounds.
And President Trump takes aim at Fed Chair Jerome Powell, saying he can't be terminated fast enough. But Powell pushes back, insisting the president has no power to fire him.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
Our independence is a matter of law. Congress says in our statute we're not removable except for cause. We serve very long terms, seemingly endless terms.
While warning that Trump's tariffs could do serious damage to the U.S. economy. Finally, a story of innovation and resilience will introduce you to Tilly Lucky, a young woman who has embraced prosthetic technology, now testing cutting-edge bionic arms with detachable, remotely operated hands. And the news starts now. We begin tonight with a horrifying scene on the campus of Florida State University. Gunfire shattered the afternoon calm near the student union, sending students running for their lives. Take a look. Panic and terror on campus, gunshots echoing across Florida State University, students seen fleeing, others evacuating with their hands in the air. The violence erupted just before noon outside the student union. Officials confirming 2 people were killed and 6 others wounded.
At approximately 11:50 a.m. Thursday, April 17th, a gunman opened fire on the main campus of Florida State University in Tallahassee, shooting multiple individuals in the vicinity of the student union building. FSU police responded immediately, engaged, neutralized, and apprehended the shooter. 2 victims of deceased are deceased, and 5 individuals have been transported to a local hospital with gunshot wounds. The shooter has also been transported to a local hospital. The 2 deceased are not students. The shooter is believed to be a current FSU student.
The suspect is now hospitalized. He's the son of a current Leon County Sheriff's deputy.
The shooter is 20-year-old Phoenix Eichner, and he's the son of a Leon County Sheriff deputy. Our Deputy Eichner, has been with the Leon County Sheriff's Office for over 18 years. She has a tremendous job that she's done. Her service to this community has been exceptional. Unfortunately, her son had access to one of her weapons, and that was one of the weapons that was found at the scene. And we will continue that investigation into how that weapon was used and what other weapons perhaps he may have had access to.
As alerts of an active shooter spread across campus, students scrambled to hide, some blocking classroom doors, others unable to reach 911.
All of a sudden, as we were sitting in the bowling alley, we just see people running, like all at once, and running towards bathrooms, running towards like wherever they could go. And all of us in the bowling alley were like, this is not normal. We're gonna, at least run into the billiards room, which still has a glass wall, but puts like another glass wall between us. And then just until we figure out what's going on, and then it was within a minute, I think, that we got the alert that there was an active shooter in the union.
Law enforcement agencies swarmed the campus, clearing buildings room by room, calling out code words to evacuate terrified students. Asked if today's tragedy changes his stance on gun laws, President Trump said,
Well, I'm going to have to look. I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. I have been from the beginning. I protected it. And these things are terrible. But the gun doesn't do the shooting, the people do. It's, a phrase that's used probably too often. I will tell you that it's a shame. I'm just hearing about it now. I just hear about it. I know the area very well. I know the school very well. I know everything about it. It's Florida. And we'll have more to say about it later. After
What do
see
you
what
mean when you
happens.
say there will be more to say about it?
Only in terms of what happened. As far as legislation is concerned, this has been going on for a long time. I have an obligation to protect the Second Amendment. I ran on the Second Amendment, among many other things, and I will always protect the Second Amendment.
This is not the first time Florida State has experienced campus gunfire. Back in 2014, an employee and 2 students were shot in another attack. And authorities say several buildings remain active crime scenes. The campus is once again shaken, this time by a gunman with deep ties to law enforcement.
The alleged shooter was also a long-standing member of the Leon County Sheriff's Office Citizen Advisory or Youth Advisory Council. So he has been steeped in the Leon County Sheriff's Office family, engaged in a number of training programs that we have. So it's not a surprise to us that he had access to weapons. This event is tragic in more ways than you people in the audience could ever fathom from a law enforcement perspective. But I will tell you this, we will make sure that we do everything we can to prosecute.
Tensions and hopes are both high as the U.S. and Iran prepare for a crucial second round of talks on Iran's nuclear program, set to take place tomorrow in Rome. The negotiations come amid international concern over Tehran's uranium enrichment activities and renewed calls for diplomatic solutions. President Donald Trump, speaking Thursday, signaled he's in no rush to launch a military strike against Iran, despite growing pressure and reports that he had previously dismissed calls for an Israeli-led attack.
I wouldn't say waved off. I'm not in a rush to do it because I think that Iran has a chance to have a great country and to live happily without death. And I'd like to see that. That's my first option. If there's a second option, I think it would be very bad for Iran. And I think Iran is wanting to talk. I hope they're wanting to talk. It's going to be very good for them if they do. And I'd like to see Iran thrive in the future, do fantastically well.
The second round of discussions follows last week's indirect talks in Muscat, Oman, which both sides described as constructive and calm. The venue shift to Rome was proposed by the U.S. as both delegations seek to build on the positive momentum. IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi arrived in Tehran on Wednesday for meetings with Iranian officials. Grossi has urged that the UN nuclear watchdog play a central role in any future agreement.
What is important is that we play a constructive role. For some, what one says may sometimes be good or sometimes not be so sufficiently good. The important thing is that there is an honest effort here on our part to keep the integrity of the effort, to be at the service of countries that have serious differences and are trying to solve them in a diplomatic way, because this is what we need.
However, Iran's deputy foreign minister has indicated it may be too early to formally involve the IAEA in the talks, even as Grossi is expected to be present in Rome for the occasion. The backdrop to these talks is tense. In February, the IAEA warned that Iran is enriching uranium to near weapons-grade levels, calling the situation of serious concern. Tehran has consistently denied seeking nuclear weapons, insisting its program is for peaceful purposes. President Trump, meanwhile, has not ruled out military action if negotiations failed.
And I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt anybody. I really don't. But Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. It's, pretty simple. It's really simple. We're not looking to take their industry. We're not looking to take their land. All we're saying is you can't have a nuclear weapon. But no, I'd like to see Iran thrive. And they can do that, I think, very easily, or they can do it the other way, and the other way is not going to be good for them. going to be really bad for them.
In Washington, tensions are rising between former President Donald Trump and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. At the center of the clash, interest rates, inflation, and accusations of political bias. Take a look. With markets jittery and the U.S.-China trade war heating up, President Trump is once again turning up the heat on a man he appointed, Fed Chair Jerome Powell. In a post, Trump said Powell's termination cannot come fast enough, and he's accusing the Fed chief of playing politics by not cutting interest rates to boost the economy.
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
This criticism comes after Powell warned that new tariffs could push inflation higher, at least temporarily.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth.
So prices haven't gone up. The only thing that's gone up actually is interest rates, because we have a Federal Reserve Chairman that is playing politics. Somebody that I've never been very fond of, actually. But he's playing politics. Interest rates should be down now. They should be coming down. In Europe, as you know, they reduced them, I guess 7 times. It looks like they're going to reduce them again and again and again. But our guy wants to play cute. But interest rates are pretty much even. Maybe they went up just a slight bit, but that's the only thing. But that's because of the Federal Reserve. Because they're not very smart people.
But Powell is standing firm, saying the Fed will never be influenced by political pressure. While Trump has previously said he wouldn't try to remove Powell, he's now openly questioning the chairman's future.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there.
But legal experts say firing him wouldn't be easy or even legal.
So our independence is a matter of law. Congress has, in our statute, we're not removable except for cause. We serve very long terms, seemingly endless terms. So we're protected in the law. So, Congress could change that law, but I don't think there's any danger of that. Fed independence has pretty broad support across both political parties and in both sides of the Hill. So I think that's not a problem.
Powell's term as Fed chair runs until next year. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court is considering whether to take up a separate case that could expand a president's power to remove heads of independent agencies. U.S. President Donald Trump said that China has reached out to talk since the U.S. imposed tariffs on imports from the country.
I have a very good relationship with President Xi, and I think it's going to continue. And I would say they have reached out a number of times.
Xi or they?
Well, the same. I view it very similar. It would be top levels of China. And if you knew him, you would know that if they reached out, he knew exactly. He knew everything about it. He runs it very tight, very strong, very smart. And we're talking to China.
So you are talking directly to President Xi?
I don't want to say that. No. It's just not appropriate.
But you're speaking. Sorry. Has he called you directly, President Xi, or reached out to try to facilitate a conversation?
Well, you'd think it was pretty obvious that he has, but we will talk about that soon. It's not that important because, honestly, we're going to have a deal. I believe we're going to have a deal with China. And if we don't, we're going to have a deal anyway because we're going to set a certain target, and that's going to be it. You have anything to say about that, Howard?
I think our tariff policy around the world has every country in the world coming in and talking to us. It is incredible. We had country after country in yesterday. We are confident that we will work out something with China.
Now, Trump added he would delay a deal on TikTok until the trade issue with China is worked out.
Well, we have a deal for TikTok, but it'll be subject to China, so we'll just delay the deal till this thing works out one way or the other. And I think it's a good deal for China. The TikTok deal is very good. TikTok is good for China, and I think they'd like to see us do a deal, especially the deal that we have pretty much done with some of the best companies in the world.
The Trump administration is rolling out a new plan to boost U.S. shipbuilding by hitting Chinese ships with port fees. Take a look. The idea: charge vessels built in China when they dock at American ports as part of a broader push to challenge Beijing's dominance in the global shipbuilding market. While this version of the plan is a bit softer than the one floated back in February, which suggested charging up to $1.5 million per visit, the fees will still kick in within 180 days and gradually increase over time. But the move isn't sitting well with China.
We have previously stated our position on the relevant issue many times. I would like to reiterate here that measures such as levying port fees and imposing tariffs on cargo handling equipment are harmful to both sides. They have not only pushed up global shipping costs and disrupted the stability of global supply chain, but also increased inflationary pressure in the United States, harmed the interests of American consumers and companies, and ultimately failed to revitalize the U.S. shipbuilding industry.
Critics are also worried the new fees could rattle global trade even further, especially with Trump's broader tariff policies already in play.
Reading of the initial proposal was there's one fee based on who operates the ship, one fee based on where the ship itself is built, and one more fee based on the order book. You know, with the last two having gradations. My interpretation is they've moved away from that.
Whenever there's an increased cost of servicing your customers, typically because there's so much consumer products that are going from point A to point B on these large ocean vessels, you're going to have a trickle-down effect. And depending on the commodity, that increase of cost could have astronomical impacts on inflation.
Because it will be kind of dollar for dollar raised, much more disruptive to the actual physical movement of the ships. You know, whether it's diversions, or whether it's consolidating ports, you know, which guarantees with it a certain amount of congestion. It's blunter and in my view more disruptive.
The U.S. is standing firm in its support for Taiwan. During a visit to Taipei, U.S. Senator Pete Ricketts assured President Lai Ching-te that America will keep helping Taiwan defend itself and that Washington wants to see peace in the Taiwan Strait without pressure or threats. Speaking at the presidential office, Ricketts emphasized that even though U.S. administrations may change, support for Taiwan runs deep.
We oppose any unilateral change in the status of Taiwan. We expect any differences between Taiwan and the mainland to be resolved peacefully, without coercion or the threat of force. To that end, the United States will continue to assist Taiwan in its self-defense. There is broad consensus in the U.S. Congress to support Taiwan's self-defense.
The U.S. remains Taiwan's closest international partner and key arms supplier, even without official diplomatic ties. And his visit comes just weeks after China carried out fresh military drills around the island. President Lai and his government continue to push back against Beijing's sovereignty claims, insisting that only the people of Taiwan can decide their future. Amidst a devastating earthquake that claimed over 3,600 lives in Myanmar, the ruling junta and the opposition National Unity Government have indicated they will extend existing ceasefires to allow for critical aid. This development follows rare diplomatic outreach by Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, who chairs the ASEAN bloc. Despite a previous largely ineffective ceasefire declared after the March 28 quake, this renewed commitment directly resulting from ASEAN's engagement with both the junta and the shadow government formed after the 2021 coup offers a vital window for humanitarian assistance in the strife-torn nation. ASEAN, which has largely shunned the junta, is now actively seeking to implement its five-point consensus peace plan through this dialogue. Tensions on the Korean Peninsula are escalating again. North Korea has criticized the U.S. for sending a B-1B bomber to joint military drills with South Korea, labeling it reckless bluffing and an open threat. The drills held on Tuesday, including fighter jets, South Korea's defense ministry insists the exercises are defensive. And this comes as South Korea and the U.S. launch a 2-week joint Air Force exercise, Freedom Flag, featuring stealth fighter jets. Ukraine says Kiev and Washington have signed a memorandum as an initial step towards clinching an agreement on developing mineral resources in Ukraine. Now that deal has been promoted by U.S. President Donald Trump. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
Trump has been pushing for a deal that would give the U.S. access to critical minerals from quarries in Ukraine like these. He frames it as repayment for U.S. military aid to Ukraine in its war with Russia. Trump says the final ink could be put on the deal in 7 days.
Well, we have a minerals deal, which I guess is going to be signed on Thursday, Scott, next Thursday, soon. And I assume they're going to live up to the deal, so we'll see. But we have a deal on that.
As the war continues, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's concerned about China's involvement. He's openly accused China of supplying military assistance to Moscow.
Ну і важлива інформація, вона не дуже приємна. Ми отримали нарешті інформацію.
And I think we will be able to talk about it in great detail next week. Especially about the data that we believe shows that Chinese representatives are engaged in the production of some weapons on the territory of Russia.
China has not commented on Zelensky's remarks. The Ukrainian president also questions the bias of U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Following a meeting between Witkoff and Russian President Vladimir Putin, Witkoff suggested a peace deal hinges on the fate of 5 parts of Ukraine that Russia now controls. Zelensky says it appears Witkoff is taking Russia's side in the peace talks.
I believe that Mr. Witkoff has adopted the strategy of the Russian side. I believe that it is very dangerous, because he consciously or unconsciously, I don't know, is spreading Russian narratives.
Zelensky says Ukraine will never recognize those territories as belonging to Russia. Efforts to move peace talks along continued Thursday in Paris as Witkoff, along with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, met with European leaders. Rubio says a U.S. peace framework received an encouraging reception. And following the meeting, French President Emmanuel Macron said there's a desire by all to end the war.
Everybody wants to get peace, for sure, and a robust and sustainable peace. And this is a thing we clearly we all pursue, and now the question is about the phasing, the way to approach this results, which is the one we do wish.
So we've talked about outlines of both sides. I thought we had positive meetings yesterday. Obviously, the Ukrainians have to go back home. They have to run it by their president. They have to take into account, their views on all of this, and we hope to hear back from them very soon. This is important, but there are a lot of other really important things going on that deserve just as much, if not more, attention. What we're talking about here is avoiding thousands and thousands of people from dying over the next year. We're trying to avoid that. So if they're serious about peace, either side or both, we want to help. If it's not going to happen, then we're just going to move on.
European negotiators will meet next week in London in further efforts to bring the war to an end. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. While the murder of a health insurance CEO in New York last year sparked public outcry and a manhunt, the accused, Luigi Mangione, now faces the potential of the death penalty following a federal indictment, despite already facing state charges without that possibility. Take a look.
A federal grand jury has indicted Luigi Mangione, who is accused of murdering a health insurance executive in New York last year. That allows prosecutors to seek the death penalty in his case, according to court filings on Thursday. Mangione is accused of shooting and killing Brian Thompson last December outside a Manhattan hotel, where his company UnitedHealth had gathered for an investor conference. The brazen killing of the CEO and ensuing 5-day manhunt captivated Americans, with some cheering Mangione, saying he drew attention to high costs and systemic flaws in the U.S. healthcare industry. The 26-year-old is already facing state murder and weapons charges in New York, which does not have the death penalty. The federal indictment does not include new charges, but raises the stakes for Mangione, who has pleaded not guilty to the state charges. Mangione has asked a judge to prevent federal prosecutors from seeking the death penalty. In a filing last week, his lawyer said U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi's directive earlier this month to prosecutors to seek the death penalty was, quote, unapologetically political and breached government protocols for death penalty decisions. If that bid fails and Mangione is convicted in the federal case, the jury would determine in a separate phase of the trial whether to recommend the death penalty. Any such recommendation must be unanimous, and the judge would be required to impose it.
For Tilly Lucky, who lost her hands as a toddler, prosthetic technology has been life-changing. And now the 19-year-old is at the forefront of another revolution, testing upon Bionic's latest creation, bionic arms with detachable, remotely controlled hands that are faster and stronger than ever before. Here's the report.
At just 19, Tilly Lucky has been at the forefront of prosthetic innovation with UK-based robotics company Open Bionics for nearly a decade. Now she's the proud owner of their latest bionic arms, which feature hands that operate even when detached from the body.
So I could just pull it out like that, but I can still operate it when it's not attached.
Lucky, who lost both her hands to meningitis as a toddler, has been helping Open Bionics push the boundaries of what is possible with prosthetics. Her ongoing feedback has helped develop advancements like 360-degree wrist rotation and wireless control.
So as you can see, it's just really, really responsive, super fast, super strong, to the point where like I'm not used to being that strong. So as you can imagine, it's pretty crazy, all while keeping it like lightweight, lighter than, you know, other ones on the market.
After 4 years of development, these prosthetics now offer unprecedented speed and functionality. The company says that new models are twice as fast as existing alternatives and uniquely waterproof. Founded in 2014, Open Bionics uses 3D printing to create robotic limbs, with its flagship product, the Hero Arm, being the world's first medically approved 3D printed multi-grip bionic hand. For Lucky, seeing the positive impact bionic limbs can have inspires her.
Hearing people being like proud to show off that difference now rather than having to like hide it away, I feel like that's a thing that all them different people go through, you know, where you start to roll the sleeves down and things like that. But with this technology, it's like people want to show it off for the first time, and I think that's amazing. And like they're my favorite stories, you know, people wanting to go out in the summertime and wear their little t-shirts and roll those sleeves up, and like little kids getting like Elsa inspired arms, and you know, all their friends at school being excited about it and them being excited about it. That's what it's all about.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.